Fresh images from NASA have just revealed something no one was prepared for. The interstellar object known as 3I/Atlas, the third foreign visitor ever seen racing through our solar system, isn't behaving like a comet at all. It's changing, expanding, and, most alarmingly, growing in ways scientists cannot explain. When the latest report dropped, astronomers described the sight in careful, scientific language. But between the lines, the message was chilling. This isn't just another icy rock shedding dust as it gets closer to the sun. Atlas looks alive, its body lengthening, its tail sharpening, glowing with an intensity that seems less like nature and more like design. Normal comets fall apart, break down, scatter in chaotic plumes. This one is doing the opposite. It's becoming more defined, more streamlined, as if preparing itself for something bigger. And here's the twist that has the scientific community whispering. Its current path will take it terrifyingly close to Mars. Coincidence? Maybe. But with every new image, fewer people are willing to believe this is a chance. At first, astronomers using Chile's Gemini South telescope thought they'd simply be confirming what they already knew. A faint visitor, shedding ice and dust as it drifts toward the sun. But when they zoomed in on 3I/Atlas, the reality was anything but ordinary. Instead of the usual hazy plume trailing behind, they saw a tail that looked sharp, almost like a luminous spear cutting across space. It wasn't ragged or twisted the way comet tails usually are. It was broad, clean, and stretched farther each day, glowing brighter as if fueled by some hidden force. The official press release described it as significantly more extended, but those words hardly captured the shock. This wasn't messy debris scattering in every direction. It looked structured, deliberate, like it was scaling up stage by stage. For seasoned scientists, it felt unsettling because comets aren't supposed to look like this. And yet, Atlas seemed determined to break every rule of the cosmic playbook. To understand just how bizarre this is, it helps to remember how comets normally behave. Picture a dirty snowball drifting through space. As it gets closer to the sun, the heat starts to vaporize frozen gases trapped inside. Jets of water vapor, carbon dioxide, and dust burst outward, forming a glowing coma and a tail. The solar wind then pushes that material away, bending it into long, chaotic streams of gas and dust. No two comet tails are ever the same. They bend, twist, break apart, and scatter unpredictably, depending on solar conditions. In other words, comet tails are messy, nature at its most chaotic. But 3I/Atlas isn't messy. Its tail isn't a blurred smudge scattered across the stars. It looks clean, sharp, and unnervingly organized. Instead of random bursts of vapor, it appears to be growing in stages, lengthening with a strange sense of order. That precision is what has astronomers whispering, "Is this just a comet or something else?" The whispers grew louder when Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb weighed in. Loeb is no stranger to controversy. He was one of the first to suggest that the interstellar object Oumuamua might not have been entirely natural. Now he's looking at Atlas and raising the same unsettling possibility. According to Loeb, the comet's tail doesn't just look sharp, it looks functional. Instead of chaotic jets of vapor, it resembles an exhaust trail, the kind you'd expect from a controlled release of energy. In other words, it's acting less like sublimation and more like propulsion. Think about what that means. Not just a rock drifting aimlessly, but something actively maneuvering through space. Every extra mile its tail grows, every precise adjustment in its path could be the signature of thrust. The idea is simple, but staggering. If true, Atlas isn't just visiting our solar system, it's steering through it. And that changes the question from, what is it? Who built it? Just when the debate seemed wild enough, NASA's James Webb Space Telescope added another twist. Webb's instruments locked onto Atlas and detected an immense plume of carbon dioxide stretching out into space, so vast it measured nearly 350,000 kilometers across. To put that in perspective, that's almost the same distance between Earth and the Moon. But the real shock wasn't its size, it was its behavior. Normally, solar wind should confine a plume like this, bending and scattering it fairly quickly. Instead, Atlas's plume expanded farther than models predicted, almost as though nothing could contain it. Yet, even at that scale, it was still too short. by 2 whole orders of magnitude to explain how the comet could reach Mars's precise flyby path. That contradiction rattled scientists. On one hand, the plume was unnaturally large. On the other, it still wasn't big enough to account for what the comet was doing. Outgassing like this usually makes a comet wobble or veer unpredictably, but Atlas's orbit stayed razor-sharp, fine-tuned, locked in place. It was both chaotic and controlled, nature and something else all at once. If the plume was strange, what came next pushed the mystery into science fiction territory. Recent studies of Atlas's nucleus revealed its brightness wasn't caused by exotic frozen gases, as many had assumed. Instead, it reflected sunlight because its surface contained nickel, not just traces of it, but in concentrations eerily similar to industrial alloys. That's not the kind of material nature casually sprinkles onto icy bodies drifting between stars. Nickel alloys are tough, resilient, and highly reflective, the same metals humans use in spacecraft plating, machinery, and reinforced structures. For astronomers, this discovery was chilling. Natural comets are fragile. They fracture, tumble, and wobble under the violent forces of outgassing. But Atlas? It remains stable, almost too stable, as though its core has been reinforced. The shiny nickel-coated surface explains why it gleams brighter than models predict. But it also fuels the suspicion no one wants to say aloud. What if this isn't a comet at all? What if it's something built? A machine dressed in a comet's disguise? The so-called nickel mystery is now at the heart of the debate. The deeper scientists looked, the stranger it became. Estimates of Atlas's nucleus, the frozen core at its center, didn't add up. Hubble observations suggested it could be as small as 1,000 feet wide, maybe up to 3 miles. But ground-based telescopes hinted at something far larger, possibly more than 12 miles across. That discrepancy is staggering. If the nucleus were truly small, it should appear faint, hidden beneath the glow of its coma. Instead, it reflects light far more intensely than expected. If it were massive, the violent jets of gas bursting from its surface should throw it off balance, causing the whole body to wobble and drift. But Atlas's path hasn't budged. Its orbit remains sharp, steady, and eerily precise. It's as though the nucleus is playing by 2 different sets of rules at once, brighter than a small body should be, yet more stable than a giant one could ever manage. For many scientists, this paradox feels less like a natural puzzle and more like evidence of design. All of these mysteries would be strange enough on their own, but what has astronomers most uneasy is where Atlas is headed. On October 3, 2025, the object will brush past Mars at a distance of just 29 million kilometers. That might sound enormous, but in the language of orbital mechanics, it's frighteningly close, a cosmic near miss. Even more unsettling is the calculated minimum orbit intersection distance, only 2.7 million kilometers from Mars's orbital path around the Sun. That's like threading a needle from across a continent. Interstellar comets simply don't do this. Their orbits are random, tugged by gravity after drifting for light years. They don't weave through solar systems with surgical precision. Yet Atlas is flying a trajectory that looks less like chance and more like intent. The comparison astronomers often use is chilling. It's like throwing a dart from another continent and having it graze the bullseye on the other side of the ocean. If this is coincidence, it's the most unlikely one ever witnessed. As if the trajectory weren't disturbing enough, new theories suggest Atlas's luminous tail may be more than just a spectacle. Some scientists speculate it could act as camouflage, concealing smaller objects within its glow. A probe no larger than 100 meters, roughly the size of spacecraft built here on Earth, would vanish inside that brilliant haze. If such probes had already detached, our telescopes would never detect them until it was too late. That possibility has made its way out of labs and into politics. Congresswoman Ana Paula Luna recently urged NASA to monitor Atlas aggressively, even calling for both the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter and Jupiter's Juno probe to track its movements. On a podcast, she went further, warning that if the object is technological, it could deploy probes not only toward Mars, but possibly toward Earth itself after its solar flyby. Hearing a sitting lawmaker speak in such terms is extraordinary, but it reflects the unease that's now spreading well beyond the scientific community. The clock is ticking. On October 30th, 2025, Halloween Eve, Atlas will swing past the sun at its closest approach. Just days later, it will skim by Mars, blazing across the skies of 2 planets at once. If it's just ice and rock, this will be one of the most spectacular astronomy events of our time, a rare chance to study an interstellar traveler up close. But if it isn't, if high-resolution cameras catch evidence of structure, maneuvers, or hidden probes, then October will mark something far more historic. It would be the first undeniable sign of technology not made by human hands moving through our solar system. For now, all we can do is watch as its tail grows sharper, its body more defiant with every passing week. Are we witnessing nothing more than ice melting in the void? Or the deliberate approach of a machine dressed as a comet? Drop your thoughts below. And if you want to follow this mystery all the way to its Mars flyby, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. The real story hasn't even begun.